Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the MHP Show podcast. I'm your host, Derek Vickers. And today we got another guest on with us today. But as you all know, on the MHP Show, we talk about anything and everything associated with mobile home parks, operations, crazy things that happen, which there's a lot of in this business. And sometimes we have guests on. And today I have a very special guest. And if you don't know who he is and you're in the MHP business, I don't know if you're living under a rock, in a cave, or on another planet. But I've got Mr. Andrew Keel here, and he is the owner of Keel Team Real Estate. And they've owned over 2,000 lots, probably more than that now. I just saw that you guys had a couple closings recently. And I don't know exactly how much self-storage, but I know that you got that too. And he is the host of the Passive MHP Investing podcast, which is actually a podcast that actually helped me learn to get into this business. And so without further ado, if there's anything I missed, Andrew, please share it. But welcome to the MHP Show.
Hey, Derek, I'm happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, man. I know our viewers and listeners will, I have no doubt in my mind they're going to get value out of this. So getting started, and I know you've been on multiple podcasts and started, talking about your background. So maybe people know it and maybe they don't, but just give us a little bit of that. When you started your entrepreneurial journey, what was that like? What was the mindset that you had, and how did you end up in this crazy business?
Man, if you want to go way back to the entrepreneurial journey, I don't think I've told this story before. My very first business venture, I actually sold Christmas trees. We set up a tent in a parking lot of an Albertsons down here, and we sold Christmas trees. We bought a whole truckload from Michigan, and they came down. A buddy and I, we split it. And he lived in Apopka, so it was very close to where he lived. And I had a full-time job. He didn't. He kind of had a part-time thing at the time. And yeah, we sold Christmas trees, and we didn't make any money. We didn't really have the whole watering of the trees and maintaining of the trees thing down. So our trees, the needles were falling off of them, and we had too many trees in one location instead of splitting them up. And we could do a whole podcast on Christmas trees, and Home Depot and Lowe's kind of put us out of business. But that was my very first entrepreneurial journey. I was a sales manager, a marketing firm, and on the side, I started flipping houses. This was after the Christmas trees, and we made no money. But then I was flipping houses, 3 or 4 a year. And I was doing marketing, had bandit signs out, I had yellow letters I was sending out, and I got a lead on 2 mobile homes in Ocala. And I went up and bought them for $2,200, $1,100 each. And I had no idea what I was going to do with them. I got on YouTube and found this guy, Lonnie Scruggs, who teaches this whole course called Deals on Wheels and creating mailbox money from buying mobile homes, individual homes, and then selling them on contract to an end buyer. And these are in other people's parks. So I went down that path, did 19 of those Lonnie deals, and I was able to sell them for each one for $2,500 to $5,000 down as a down payment, and then $250 a month for a period of time. Some of them were 5-year notes that I was creating. And it was awesome. I created the mailbox money. I had enough income off of those Lonnie deals to offset my expenses. At the time, it was just my wife and I, living cheap, my truck was paid off. So that helped. And, so that's how I got started. Eventually met a park owner who started funneling me homes, and we made friends. And, long story short, he taught me how to syndicate, how to raise money from investors to buy mobile home parks and share equity, instead of thinking I needed all the money myself to buy these things, which is what I thought. That aha moment came when he was like, hey, well, why don't you give away a portion of it to your investors and let them, bring the capital and just get them a good return. And it makes a win for everybody. So long story short, we're up to 36 mobile home parks now and just over 2,500 lots. So we're super excited, growing our portfolio. We also have 11 self-storage facilities. that we got into 2 years ago, started buying those, and those have been, another good alternative asset class. But we love mobile home parks. That's like 80% of our efforts and our work. That's our baby. That's our primary focus.
That's awesome, man. So I just thought of the title for this episode. It's going to be like from Christmas trees to nine figures or something like that.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a good one. Yeah, the Christmas tree thing, man. It's crazy how it's kind of like a carny life, like people are like pulling up an RV in the parking lot and like living out of the RV while they're selling the trees, 24/7. It's a lifestyle, man.
Yeah, dude, it's funny. I never told anyone this story either. So when I've always had these little entrepreneurial things. My very first thing was in middle school, and I think we're around the same age. So you remember when like Napster was out and LimeWire and all that stuff. So I would download songs for people. And of course, this was illegal at the time, right? Well, sort of not. And I would burn CDs for them and I would sell them CDs. So I was making, a couple $100 a week on CDs because I was the only cool kid with a CD burner. Nice. And that was my little first little entrepreneurial journey. So
that's awesome.
Do you still own those? Do you still own those mobile homes? The ones, or did you sell them?
So the individual trailers? No, we sold off all of those, and yeah, there's no way I could manage all that now.
Yeah, right. So after you learned from that guy how to syndicate deals, did you go out and find a deal next? Were you already hunting for deals, or how did that work?
Yeah, I created a list. I think I got the list from like Frank and Dave's boot camp. They kind of give you that big list that everybody kind of starts with. And then I just started cold calling. I just started hitting the pavement, and I mailed out like a group of letters as well to that list, and just was bound and determined to find some off-market deals. I came from that like off-market wholesaler, rehabber, fix and flip type of mindset. So I just knew I wanted to buy direct from an owner instead of like buying something listed. And, that model, we still do that to this day. We added it up the other day. We made over 260,000 cold calls last year, like to two commercial property owners. That's storage and mobile home parks. But, that just shows you like that's where we get 99% of our deals. Wow.
So do you have a team? I'm sure you're not making all those cold calls. So I'm sure you have a team that's doing that.
That's right. Yeah, we have a team of 7 sales reps. They're part-time, and they're calling every day, Monday through Saturday.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and one thing I wanted to say, when you were looking for those first deals, one thing that's fascinated me about what you've done is that, we live 5 minutes from each other, right? Or whatever it is, right? And you don't own anything remotely close to here. Mm-hmm. And so like when I was first starting investing, I was looking around in the area. Did you, when you were looking in the Midwest or wherever your first park was, did you understand that market? Did you do a bunch of research on that market, or were you just kind of, shotgun approach, whatever hit, or was it strategic?
Yeah, I was focusing on strategic markets. Like one was Omaha, the other was Sioux Falls, Des Moines, and like St. Louis and like Indianapolis. And I just got all the mobile home parks in those areas, and I just started calling them like on a recurring basis. Like every week or two, I was talking to those owners and building relationships. So I was targeting those markets, but I was focusing on the Midwest for a reason. First off, the boot camp kind of teaches you that. The Frank and Dave boot camp was like, hey, go to the Midwest. There's no hurricanes. It's more all age communities. It's more of a blue collar type of a tenant instead of like a 55 and older type of a tenant. And that's where we got the starting point for the model.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so when you did that and you found that first part, do you have an idea of how that was going to be managed, or were you just following like the boot camp and how that went? Because I know I've talked to new investors, and they're like, yeah, I found a good deal. It's, 1,000 miles away or 500 miles away. How am I going to manage it? And was that, I guess my question is, was that first deal a turnaround project? And how did you think about managing that? And how did you think through that?
Yeah. I'm very hands-on, like even with the flips, I was like there every day, kind of like micromanaging the contractors, making sure that I get my money's worth. So yeah, I moved on site to that first project. And yeah, I think it wasn't like a huge turnaround like some of the ones we're doing today where there's like, 50% occupancy and we're bringing in, 30, 40 brand new homes. No, this is more like it was 67 lots. We had 8 park-owned homes that were, sold on contract. And then there was like, I think another 6 vacant lots. So it was really just, filling those 6 vacant lots and then rehabbing like 2 or 3 other vacant park-owned homes out of the batch. So it wasn't like a huge heavy lift. And then I got super lucky too, because our on-site manager, I'm sure you can speak to this. The on-site manager is such an important role, and like if you find a good one, they're just so awesome. They just make your life, they make your life so much easier. And I found a really good one. Her name is Diana Rice. She's still with me to this day. She just had her 7-year anniversary with me. She's full-time now. She's our transition manager. She goes to all of our new parks and like helps them get set up with our systems and everything. But yeah, I got really lucky with that on-site manager and she really helped me project manage that.
Wow. That's a pretty cool story, dude, and I cannot tell, for our listeners here, how important it is to pick that manager. And one of the ways, after you hire someone, one of the ways that I've always learned is that how do you tell if you have a good manager or not is whether or not things are coming to you and you having to get involved. If you've got an inbox full of stuff that you have to handle on site, then, there's something, maybe they don't understand something and you can teach them that. But if there's a bunch of things that's getting to you as the executive, then that may be something that, hey, well, I need to look into this or look into that manager more. But that's great, dude. First manager, first park, you hit on a manager and they've been with you for 7 years. I mean, that's awesome, dude.
It's been great. Yeah. And her husband, funny story, is the co-owner of the mobile home transport business that we started. So we have A1 Mobile Home Transport and Installation that does, some of our own internal work for the transport and installation stuff. And he was driving yachts from the manufacturing plant in St. Louis to the coast. So that's what he did before this is he would build these yachts would get built. He'd drive them to North Carolina or down to Texas or over to California. And he was driving yachts around. So what better cargo to switch from yachts to mobile homes and start transporting those? So it's just been an awesome, it's been a blessing. There's no way to describe it. It's been a blessing, because it gave me that confidence then to go into the second and third park, knowing that like, hey, there's good people out there. You just got to find them.
Yeah. And I'm a full believer. Like if you're a good person yourself, you're gonna pull in those good people to help you get to your goals or whatever you want to do. So that's awesome. So I want to talk about lessons learned. I know we've got, tons of lessons learned that we have in this business, but if you could go back to, 7 years ago when you were starting, like what would you tell yourself, now to that, Andrew of 7 years ago, and what mistakes have you made that you've learned from?
Man. Wow. There's so many, man. The first one I would start with, that's like the most important, I would say, is the people, is like the quality of people that you're bringing on to your inner circle, especially early on, right? Because those people you bring on early on, they're gonna get experience over time. And if you're compounding their experience and their training with a good person that's gonna stick around and like is in this, that's like by far the most important thing. And I think early on I was kind of like, hey, I'm just gonna bring on friends and family and just anybody that wants to come and work with me can. And and then also like trying to find like somewhat cheap labor to kind of help with some of the certain tasks that I was stepping over $1 to pick up a dime, because of the people. So I think the people is like really important. And now we do like, a multiple interview process and we do like a personality assessment to really assess people. Hey, you seem cool, but like, are you a good fit for this role? Like, you're going to be behind a computer all day. Like, are you a good fit for this role? Or are you somebody that likes to be in project management, out of the office sometimes, being hands-on? So the people's the big thing. Another lesson I learned, is really just go bigger, sooner, because, we have like one park that's like 15 lots, and it like, it cash flows like very minimally. And it's like, on an expense ratio standpoint, it's like the most expensive park to run. And, we have another park that's like 31 lots, and it's like the same thing, it's tougher to find good managers in those parks. And you don't get the benefits of scale. If you have 67 lots, now you have, more leverage. You get that economies of scale. So I think those are like two big things that, if I was like day one, just getting started, that like I would really spend a lot of time on, and making sure that I'm doing the right thing from those standpoints.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree with you on the going bigger part, because I've talked to people that are looking to get into this business, and they're saying, hey, what is it? What do you think about this deal? It's 15, 20 lots. And I'm like, yeah, it's fine. And you should get in the business, but you should also think about those exact things that you just said, because you're not going to be able to, pay a manager. If you got 20 lots at $500 a month, you're not going to be able to pay a high quality manager. And the way to get high quality people is paying them well. And we've learned that, because we did, I did the same thing. I was trying to, hire cheap and, sort of bootstrap it. But we actually learned that it's better to pay for quality, because it ends up costing you less in the long run.
It totally does. It totally does. And yeah, I did the same thing. And, you can get people just off of your charisma and your personality to like take the role. But then like 2 or 3 months in, once they're getting phone calls at 11 o'clock at night, and people are knocking at their door at 11 o'clock at night, then it's like, okay, Andrew's cool and all, but like, this is not for me. And, it's tough for these on-site managers to set boundaries, and we try to like really make sure that, hey, if someone comes to your door at 11 o'clock, like, you need to tell them like, hey, come back during business hours. Don't answer. But some of them just want to be that people person for everybody to talk to.
Yeah, for sure. What's your structure of your team look like now?
Wow, well, we're like over 80 employees now. On-site manager at every property. Whole accounting team that is probably 3 or 4 people deep. Accounts receivable team that's 3 people deep. There's project managers that are like handling CapEx projects. And then there's asset managers that each asset manager has like 4 properties that they manage, and they're managing the on-site managers at those 4 or 5 properties. And that's, and then there's a COO, John Scortino, who's been with me for a really long time. And, he's also hands-on with projects and visiting, every quarter to all of the properties. So that's like a real condensed version, the quick version of kind of how things are set up right now.
Got it. And did you just you started building, you had the one property manager, and then you just started adding people and kind of figuring out the structure of your business as you went, it sounds like?
Dude, we're sailing the ship and building it at the same time. It was the hardest thing ever. The cash flow on that first deal was just going right back in to just cover salaries to get myself some help, because for the first like 4 or 5 parks that we bought, like I was doing everything from opening the mail to, writing checks to doing the meter reads, like everything. And it's just wasn't sustainable. Like, I was talking to someone, just the other day, and it's like, we manage our parks so much better today because we have all these people that are like better at those roles than I was. Right. So I think that, we kind of bootstrapped it, as we grew and we had more management fees to be able to cover.
Yeah. And I did the same thing. I remember my wife, she used to she was billing. So she was paying all the invoices and doing all that stuff. And it would take her, she would have to do that manually for, I think we had, I don't know, probably about 600 or 700 lots. And then we started kind of hiring that out. And so she used to like hate me for, doing that. She liked helping. That was fine. But bootstrapping is what you have to do. And I think when you're starting any business, remember in the insurance business, before I had built it up, like all the money you make is going back into the machine. And then at some point it turns over to where it's not like that anymore. But I think in the beginning, that's just the way it goes.
Yeah. And it's real estate, right? This isn't, this isn't like high level sales where you're getting a check every month. This is, when I was in sales, it was like, okay, I'd close the deals, this month. And then like, it was usually like I'm getting paid that very next month on the 15th, I was getting paid for those sales. So it's just like, this is so different. You're investing, you're building wealth through the equity in these properties, but that equity isn't just very liquid. You can't just go to the bank and pull out that equity and go spend it. You got to be patient, and it's a blessing too, because it's in there, it's locked in there. You can't go spend it. It's going to be compounding, because you're putting it to work. But I think that's just something that, people just starting out, they're like, oh, I'm going to go buy my first mobile home park and I'm going to break out of the rat race. And it's like, it's possible. It's possible. There's deals out there where that's possible, but it's a lot harder than that, especially if you want to grow and get it to the point where you can have, people on your team to kind of help take away some of that management burden.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't make any money on my first park until like 8 months later when we refinanced it. Like there wasn't a dime that I made on it until then.
But
now we had
you refinanced it in 8 months. That's fast.
Yeah, it was fast. It was fast. That was when our little business model that we have that's the park that we figured out that this would work. And so we were able to basically take a park that was 50% occupied, make it 100% occupied. We did that in like 4 or 5 months. And then we were able to go back and recap that deal. Now we had bought some deals in between there, and we had some like really small acquisition fees and stuff that was just going back into the machine to keep the lights on. But I think you're right. Like if you're new and getting in this business, yes, you can find a park that will cash flow you out of the rat race. But it may be a little bit more difficult than that, because you buy a park, old infrastructure, the septic goes out, it's $12,000 to fix that. And there's just things that are going to come up in these parks. That's just the way it is. And so I would just take your expectations and make them a little bit more reasonable. I think you need to have high expectations, but also some reasonableness in there as well. So one question I wanted to ask you. So you've been in this business for 7 years now. Where have you seen, because this business has changed even since when I got into this business in 2020. So how have you seen the business change from, 2016 that you got into the business? Yeah.
I started looking for my first park in 2016, and then didn't close on one until 2017. That was when we bought the first one. But yeah, the business has changed. I think every year, right? It's consolidating. There's these bigger, private equity funds that are gobbling up stuff. I still think there's a lot of opportunity. I think it got really hot. 21, it was a high transaction year. Interest rates started going up. Now I think things are cooling off, but the sellers are not really open to being realistic. Most of them, they still want those 2021 prices. So it's a weird time right now, but I do think that like there's a lot of awareness on the asset class that wasn't there previously. You could go out to a country club and tell people, hey, I'm what do you do? Oh, I'm in mobile home park investing. And back then it was like, oh, you're in what? Like that? No way. And now it's like, oh, I heard about that on Bigger Pockets. Oh, Brandon Turner does that. Oh there's something to that, right? That's profitable. And then it's a different conversation. So it's exciting. It's also like, geez, I wish people would just stop getting into it, and people like you and me would just stop blowing up, the content, so people are all into it. So there's more for us, but there's so many parks out there, and there's so much opportunity that, I think that's why operators like yourself and the other people we met at the MHI conference, everybody's like an open book. They're just willing to share and try to help everybody because there's so many opportunities. I'm looking at 3 of them this morning that are, mom and pop owned, value add. The sellers are ready to retire and they need work. They're 75% occupied. And it's like there's easy value add there for someone to come in and put homes on those lots. So it's somebody's going to make money on them.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you had to adjust your buying criteria in this market a little bit? Like your time horizons, adjusting those?
Not the time horizons, but I would say like park owned homes back when we got into this business, it was like, hey, no more than 20% park owned homes. We're not going to touch it. But now it's like, okay, let's pay for some of these park owned homes because if you remember during COVID, it was like really hard to order brand new homes and get them delivered. It was like 18-month turnaround times. It was crazy. So we were changing our model to be more open to buying park owned homes and then converting them to tenant owned homes because, hey, you have the home there, versus having to wait 18 months for it and, before you can get any cash flow off of it. So yeah, we've been more open to that. We just bought a 136 lot park that was fully park owned homes in Tennessee. And yeah, we're planning on converting those all to tenant owned homes and get that park qualified for agency financing. So that's our approach.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think you were telling me about that deal when we had breakfast. I think it was that one. Wasn't there one in Texas that you bought with all park owned homes?
Yeah, we bought another.
How's that one going?
The one in Texas had 36, and that was like a 75 lot park, and it's going really well. We've converted, I think, like 10 of the 36 just right off the clip, and we closed that like a month or 2 ago. So it's progressing. But the one in Tennessee, like literally closed end of last week, so it's brand new, and we're going to kind of take it slow, like we talked about.
Got it. And then what is your process of converting park-owned homes? You give people the opportunity to buy it, or how does that work for you guys?
Yeah, we make it like really attractive for the tenants. Some of the times when I'm walking around door to door, because I do this on some of these conversion projects where I'll go door to door and meet the tenants and sit down on their couch and they'll start crying. They're like, you're really like, wait a minute, you're really going to offer this to me? Like, I don't have good credit. I didn't think I'd ever be able to own anything, because I got a divorce and my husband messed my credit up and yada, yada, yada. And like, we're giving them an amazing deal, where we're trying to say, hey, use your security deposit to, we're getting creative to make it a no-brainer for these people. And, sometimes it just takes people some time to kind of like, because they think we're tricking them. They're like, wait a minute, you're going to like give me the title to this and all I have to do is like pay what I'm paying now for another 12 months. And then you're just going to give me the title and I get to drop to lot rent. Hold on, let me think about this. And they try to think through because it just seems like too good of a deal. Right. But that's what's cool about what we do is that we're able to create that win-win where it's like, hey, it actually makes sense for us to take a loss on this home and get you to own it and, get the lot rent so that, the banks, it's more financeable and things like that. So it's part of the business that I love.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that because I've done the same thing. I've gone around and offered these crazy deals to people that have been living in these park owned homes for a while. And they're like, what? This doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, well, just to give you an idea, like we don't want these park owned homes. We just want a good tenant in there paying lot rent. And so it's pretty cool, like you said, that we get to actually do that. I couldn't tell you. I had the same things happen because I love being on site and going around and talking to the residents and, the things that you hear and see. Like I went into this guy's house and this was in Tampa 6 and he's got literally the entire house. He has Matchbox cars and NASCAR die-cast cars. This is a 2-bedroom, probably, 65 footer. Like, I mean, all through the house, every room. The only places
on the walls, it was like glued on the walls.
Well, not glued on the walls. He had these shelves put up and they were on his kitchen counter. They were on his kitchen table, like all this really interesting stuff. And he was telling me these stories behind some of these and stuff. And so it was really cool. Really cool to do that. And I'm sure you've got some of the same similar instances that you've had for sure.
Yeah, we have a park up in Covington, Tennessee, which is just above Memphis. and there was an Elvis impersonator, and his name that he like went by was, I think it was forget his first name, like whatever Elvis's like actual name was or whatever, something like his last name was Presley. Like he like changed his name and everything. And, we went and talked to him because he was a park owned home. We were going to convert him. We, sitting at his kitchen table, and he had the legit sideburns down the side, the whole deal. And it wasn't a wig. It was like legit dark hair. Like it was just awesome. Like you just meet some funny people that are just doing their thing, living their life.
Yeah. No, for sure. So give me your, one or two craziest stories of things that you've witnessed or seen or had happen to you in a mobile home park. You can give me one or two.
Man, I mean, the one that comes to mind that still to this day is a classic is the raccoon meat chili. I think I told you about this one previous, but had a tenant in our park. My wife and I, my 1.5-year-old daughter, and then John Scortino, we moved into a house. John is the COO and helps with projects and stuff like that. We moved into a house in front of a park that we bought in Ohio, and someone came up with one of those like butter containers full of chili and put it on our front step and said, "Hey, made too much, enjoy." And we had just raised rents on these people, and we didn't, some people kind of were like not happy with us because we were issuing violations and stuff. So we thought somebody, maybe was like, had ill intent with that chili. So we didn't eat it. But, a couple of weeks later, a guy came up and he's like, "Hey, what'd you guys think of that chili? That's award-winning chili. I won the chili cook-off at the First Methodist Church of Salem with that cookie or with that chili." And long story short, I asked him, I was like, "Man, that chili was fantastic. What's the secret ingredients?" And he said raccoon meat. He had traps in the back of the park and he would skin it and use that meat in the chili. And I hope he disclosed that to the people at the First Methodist Church that, he entered in the chili cook-off. But yeah, that's one crazy one. And then, we have other ones as well that, that are silly, but it's just the nature of what we do, I guess.
Yeah. I was on site, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, and you maybe saw me post about it, but one of the tenants, they all know who I am in these parks. They're like, Derek, come here. And she takes me into, like, she has her front yard with a white vinyl fence so you can't see. So she's got these, I think passion fruit, like vines in there. And so she gave me, she's like, "Here, Derek, I got this for you. I'm going to give you a bag of passion fruit. And then here is some passion fruit juice that I made." And she's like, "Go on and try it." And I'm like, "Well, I hope there's no alcohol in it, is there? Because I don't drink." Right. And I took a drink of it and I'm still here today. And yeah, so kind of the same story, except I was brave enough.
You were pressed into it. Yeah. Have a drink right now. Here, have a bite of this chili. Open your mouth.
Yeah, that would have been but I'm still here. Here.
You made it. You're okay. Yeah.
So what do you think the future of this business looks like, with all the consolidation going on, with all the the different things that are kind of happening in the business? What do you see in the next 5 years for the mobile home park business?
Yeah, I think it'll continue to consolidate. I think with interest rates being higher, we'll see some lower deal flow. But I still think it's an attractive asset class for many different reasons. And, the supply, the number of mobile home parks that are out there is being reduced every year. It's like something by like 1% per year. It's being reduced because, they're being redeveloped into higher and better uses. And, there's still these like mom and pop landlords that just allow deferred maintenance to run rampant, so they get shut down. So I think we'll continue to see these assets appreciate. I think that affordable housing is not just an easy fix, right? It's not something we can just snap our fingers and say, "Hey, affordable housing is going to be solved." No, this is like a bigger issue, and mobile home parks being the most affordable form of non-subsidized housing is a huge win for the United States. Like, it is what we need. You can build, manufactured housing for literally half the cost of site built. And I think we're going to see a lot more manufactured homes being manufactured and put into private land and parks. But I just see these assets appreciating, and I think they're great investments moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. And what you said with the dwindling supply, which part of me, is like, okay, so some of these assets look overpriced right now, but are they going to be cheaper in 5 years? Probably not.
No. Yeah.
Right? Probably not. And so that I go back and forth on that every day, especially, here in Florida. I mean, the prices in Florida are just, crazy. I'm still seeing, 3.5, 4 caps, 4.5 caps, like, crazy
trading
stuff.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff. Yeah, I know. So I don't know how people are doing it, but anyways, Andrew, look, I appreciate you coming on the show. And it's always great to chat with you. And look, hey, I wanted to mention, I saw a picture of you you posted something on Instagram. You were at the pool with your kids. I'm like, man, Andrew's ripped. I was like, I thought I was the most ripped guy in this business, but I got some competition now.
Oh man. Well, yeah, you will have to get the kids together and go to the little aquatic center over here in town, sometime soon. But yeah, dude, I love working out. I do some Ironman events a couple times a year. So we'll have to, get you on the bike.
Yeah, dude. How long does an Ironman take?
Oh man, it's crazy. The last one I did took 11 hours and 47 minutes to complete. It was like a full day,
Yeah. How do you like, I guess through training, like how do you, I guess, learn how to pace yourself for that? I mean, because I would imagine that's like key.
That's everything
in that.
Yeah, that's everything. In nutrition is a big part of it. It's a very mental sport, and that's why I like it, because it actually transfers to business very, very well, because it's that mental capacity. It's like the guys that just run out and they swim as fast as they can and they just hit the bike really hard. You always pass them on the run because they're cramping up and they didn't pace themselves. So yeah, it takes some self-control. It takes some training. I always have a coach, hire a coach, just like in business. I want to make sure that I'm, learning from people that have walked this path before. And the Ironmans have helped me do that.
Yeah. Are you training for one now?
I'm not training for one right now. I'm kind of taking the summer off, doing some trips with the kids and stuff like that. But I'll probably do one, next spring.
Yeah,
do it with me?
I got to get my endurance back up. I've been doing, strength training. I do a lot of HIIT stuff.
Okay.
And so it's like, balls to the wall for like 20 seconds stop at intervals like that. So nice. I enjoy doing that because it gives me the same benefits as you, kind of the mental benefit of it, but just in shorter kind of spurts. But, I'm down with the endurance stuff too. I've always been like a naturally good long distance runner. Like I've always been really good at that. And so I need to train up and do an Ironman with you, bro. I'm going to do it.
Dude, let's do it. That would be fun, man. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, cool. Thanks, Andrew, for coming on the MHP show. Guys, we're here every Monday and I will see you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks again, Derek, for having me.